to Yin Young, the podcast. This is your co-host, Young, aka James, aka Young, and Dan. You want to introduce yourself?
This is Dan, aka Yin. You're
We're
sounding
jo-
really far. You have to be really close to the mic.
I'm just gonna hold the mic here. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay. And
like
then
you're
I'm
karaoke singing.
I'm a karaoke singer, and I'm here joined by one. This is a second time around. We have Paul. Do you want to go by Paul Hoi? Yeah.
Paul Hoi. Yeah.
Paul Hoi.
Yeah.
Paul Hoi. Yay.
Hey,
Artist Paul Hoi, and we are in the lovely. Well, we're in front of a coffee shop. You can probably see part of the logo, but I'm sorry to we're trying to support local stuff, but like this is the closest, easiest one we could find. And we are both here in Japan. We're actually in Setagaya area of Tokyo, Japan, and so happy that we can meet up in person.
Yeah.
That's super dope. We actually just went to a Junji Ito art exhibit. He's like a horror manga artist. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
incredible.
Yeah. So,
You ever heard of him, Dan?
no,
You probably recognize some of his panels. It's gone like
Probably.
I feel like some of his panels have gone viral.
like Uzumaki, which is like a spiral. He has like stuff about spirals. It's like horror stuff. Like some people in the town get obsessed with spirals.
well, I mean, when you
Yeah.
when you say Uzumaki, everyone thinks of Naruto. Like I think
Right,
of Naruto right away.
Yeah. But yeah, so Paul and I, we just want to do a quick recording. I know Dan, your time is limited, so we'll try to do less than an hour ish. Is that okay, right, for you?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Yeah. And we were talking actually about. So what's interesting is that I met up with Paul 2 weeks ago, and we're hanging out because I was kind of stalking him on Instagram, and I saw your stories. Well, I'm not stalking, but like Instagram was like was suggesting some of your stories to me. I was like, oh shoot, you're in Japan. I was like, let me hit you up, and we haven't spoken since the last recording, which was I guess I want to say a few years ago now. Yeah.
Wow.
When you were
how long
in
ago was that? Washington.
Washington, I think.
Yeah, that was like 3 years ago. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Man.
Wow, man. I'm
And-
accelerating.
And I kind of it was so cool to catch up with Paul because he's been just solo traveling for the last few months, and I was just like, whoa, this is like your story is like super interesting to me. Like, and also the fact that you're also working on your craft as an artist and moving towards like motion design. So I just want to reconnect obviously as a homie
Yeah.
and then talk a little bit about like what these last few months have been. And
Totally.
also one thing we're talking just offline about is martial arts. I didn't know that he was like a huge MMA martial arts fan or a fan of.
Yeah,
Oh.
more of a
Watching-
fan than practitioner, but definitely a huge fan. It's
Yeah.
the only sport I follow consistently throughout about half my life.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and then he recently. Oh, sorry, I'm just doing like the Cliff Notes version right now. But recently he got super into skiing, like that's like your calling. So a lot of stuff to touch on today. But yeah, Dan, did you have? So that's kind of like an overview of what we've been talking about. Like,
Right.
Yeah, Dan, do you have any places you want to start or you want to talk about?
Well, yeah. I mean, what brought you to Japan, and how long are you there for? And how long have you been there already?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm trying to remember what we even talked, how much of this we touched on last time, but I've wanted to do like a year-long sort of a sabbatical / like bucket list year for myself for a long time, and it was the right time. Like I was at my last company for 7 years, and I feel like I've was in a place where I wasn't growing in the same way that I wanted to, that I imagined myself to, and talked about like the weekly studies that I was doing for several years to sort of like work on my own craft, and sort of the right balance of pushing and pulling of like getting away from my job, but also like chasing after something else felt like the right time at the beginning of this year. So I was doing research on all the countries I wanted to go to. I have a list of like 20, 30 countries originally. And then I started researching Japan, and I was like, wait, what if I just, instead of going to this country like Indonesia, I just do diving in Japan? And it's like the list started consolidating more and more. I decided that instead of going to those long list of countries, I decided to go to Japan for as long as I can. So I've been here for about 5 months. I started.
Wow.
I was in. My first stop was in Alaska. I flew with my skis out there for a couple of weeks, then went straight to Hokkaido in Sapporo. And I just had a car. I drove around the island and skied everywhere for about 2 months for the whole season. Checked out
Gosh.
local towns. Yeah, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Had my laptop with me and I was doing some work here and there, my personal work, passion projects, and then slowly made my way down just through the different islands. And I think we chatted when I was in Okinawa. I was down there and I fell in love with scuba diving. I got my certification in Ishigaki. I was there for a month. Also fell in love with, this is going to be a common theme in this conversation, I fell in love with a lot of new things here, and old things too. I rode around the island on a moped, which I got completely just enamored with. And I want to buy one if I'm going to come back to Japan, actually, or a motorcycle.
It's pretty safe, like moped, like as far as the roads and stuff. It's
Super safe.
Okay.
Yeah, super safe. I would say anywhere in Japan from what I've seen so far. I would never ride one in the United States. It's like out of the question completely.
Taiwan would be kind of dangerous too.
Taiwan.
Hong Kong maybe, yeah. I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
no, not Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's people are pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
For our listeners who don't know, Paul's background is from Hong Kong.
Yeah, I grew up in Hong Kong for the first 9 years of my life. Yeah.
So how much longer are you going to be in Japan for? I mean, 5 months already. And
5
Is it
months
indefinite?
already. I wish it was longer, but I'm actually catching a flight over to Argentina in about 4 days.
Oh, wow.
To catch their winter to ski somewhere. Yeah, but the plan right now, tentatively, is to come back to Japan longer term, if possible, if the right alignment happens. Maybe November is sort of the date I'm looking at. So
Wow.
we'll see what happens. Yeah,
That's amazing, yeah.
yeah.
So I guess for me, I think maybe Dan, you have the same question. It's like so there are different like kind of like lifestyles and choices. So that seems like to be honest, like that's like what you're doing. Some people on the outside would say, "Wow, you're living the dream. Like you're traveling, you're doing solo traveling."
Yeah.
And currently, like you're like as far as and you're on your own, you're free in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to hear what was that transition from like that corporate lifestyle, working the 9 to 5,
Sure.
and then that transition to like where you start doing the solo travel for months on end. Like I think there's people who are interested in it and who might even idealize it. So I'm kind of curious about that transition and then also the actual reality of that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for being curious. Yeah, I mean, first few weeks were honestly, I was in a pretty high stress environment at a big tech company, where it's just one of those companies with like a perpetual launch cycle all the time. And so the first month or so, I would say I was like just going through the process of decompression, where I was like getting sort of like these stress dreams, maybe wake up being like, wait, did I check my email today? And these like weird little flashes for about,
I have that feeling too.
Yeah, it's common, I think. When you've locked in for so long, for me, in my case, 7 years, it took a while to decompress. And I think the really important thing for me has been, like I said, like even though I knew that I've outgrown my role, my job at the time, it was really extremely important, in my opinion, if you're doing long-term traveling, to have something that's pulling you as far as an intent for what you want out of a trip. Even though you're keeping things open, you're being open-minded. In my case, the pull for me was to ski as much as possible and to make as much art as possible. Those are the two sort of North Stars. Yeah. And, all the things adjacent to it can happen, and it's important to be open to that too. But I think it's important to have an intent as far as why you're traveling, at least for me, but nothing wrong with just going on a vacation and just doing whatever either. But for me, that's been important for my mental health long term, especially.
and the actual reality of solo traveling.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. I know when I did some solo travels before, I think I grappled with loneliness like that. I had feelings of severe loneliness and okay, I don't, I'm an outsider wherever I go, sort of.
Yeah.
Even in Taiwan, even though my parents are from Taiwan and I speak the language, there's always still like this outsider-ishness. And then I felt that even in Australia when I was living there, even though I speak, obviously I'm a native speaker of English, but like they hear my accent and they look at my face and like, wait, something's off. Like you have an American
Something's
accent.
off. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Australia. Okay, anyways, that's a whole other story.
Australia is-
Australia, they
complicated.
be a little racist sometimes.
Sure.
I had let's be real. I have some wonderful Australian friends and people I know. Some of the most kind people I've met. But there's also a certain as in
Sure.
America, there's a racist culture there as well.
Sure.
So I'm curious to hear about your personal experience. Maybe for some people, actually, that kind of separation from like social structures
Yeah.
is actually welcomed. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I want to hear more about the solo traveling you've done too.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dan, I understand you've done some of that as well. Like,
I have not
you
done
do.
solo traveling.
Really?
Not like what you guys have done. I
Oh.
have, I've always gone someplace where.
Hi there.
Whoops,
What can I do for you?
Siri.
Hi, Siri.
I have not done solo traveling like you guys have done. Even when I was single, I was just like, or in my 20s, I just like went straight to work and barely scraped by. I wasn't an artist, so I was just like trying to make ends meet.
see.
There wasn't a job that I could actually pick up and leave. Versus like nowadays, I think it's more realistic. If you can find a job, a tech job, you can be in operations and not have an artistic artistic related profession and do it anywhere in the world. But
Yeah.
in the 90s, that was impossible.
Yeah. And solo
So
traveling.
you're talking about like
is-
remote work kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even Japan now, I think they extended the visa to 6 months if you want to do remote work out there.
The digital nomad visa.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I didn't do that. I just left and came back. And I went to Korea for 2 weeks and came right back.
That's what a lot of people do.
Yeah. I've heard of people
It's a
doing that
short
for like
trip.
years.
Yeah.
Just like keep resetting it as they're working in Japan. But I don't know how strict they are about stuff like that. If you come back several
Well, they'll
times.
if they catch you, they'll like deport you. But if they
Yeah.
don't catch you, just don't do anything stupid.
I'm fast, man.
Yeah.
Too fast.
Japan's a great country, safe, but I hear like the prosecution rate is like 90-something, 9% or something. It's like basically if you get prosecuted for something, you're going to jail. Basically, that's what I hear. Yeah.
I heard it put you in jail first and decide on whether you're guilty or not. I heard it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The system here is pretty.
Right. So that's why I guess that's why everyone's so not committing crimes as much. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, that's always a factor.
Yeah. I guess Dan, maybe for Paul and I, who I know I've heard some of your Japan stories, and some of our listeners maybe not know. I guess I'd be curious to hear because you came for my wedding last year, and then prior to that, it had been a while since you've come to Japan. So I'm kind of curious to hear your feelings about seeing that kind of difference. Was there a huge difference between the last time you came to Japan, last time you came to Japan, and then last time for my wedding, or not so much? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's mostly about the price, right? The inflation is almost zero in Japan. So whatever it costs when I went there in 2014, the same price was available. The sticker price was still the same, but the dollar was much stronger. So everything felt really inexpensive. But on the flip side, there were a lot of foreigners everywhere. And I think the biggest contrast was going to Shikoku and seeing non-native Japanese people working in a convenience store in the middle of nowhere. And that's something that you didn't see like in 2014 and even the years before that. There's no way that you would find a foreigner working at a convenience store in some small podunk town that no one really goes to.
Where were you in Shikoku?
We went to Iya Valley for like a night or two.
Iya Valley. That's in the middle. That's central Shikoku,
yeah,
right?
it's in the middle. Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's like river, and then it's
Nice.
it's a very famous onsen place I guess. But
Mm,
it's like in the middle of nowhere, and that's what we wanted to
that's
experience because
awesome.
when you go
Shikoku's
to
rad.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you go to Japan, everyone goes to Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto, right?
Right.
Those three major cities. But
Yeah.
I wanted to go someplace completely rural and see what
Yeah.
that's like.
That's awesome.
Mm.
Yeah, I stayed a few nights in Awaji Island.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I went in and stayed in Takamatsu for a few nights, and I went up to Toshima Island and Oshima Island, the art islands.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was so rad. Completely different vibe. Like as soon as you
Yeah.
cross that bridge, you go to Shikoku. I love it down there. It's awesome.
When you went to Awaji, is Awaji Island the theme park island?
A theme
It's
park
close.
island? There's a
There's a theme.
single Ferris wheel. I mean, there's a theme park attached to it. I remember seeing like a big Ferris wheel at night on top of this hill, but we didn't go there.
Because
Just
there's a theme park island around that area. I think it was out. I thought it was
a theme
Awaji.
park.
Yeah. When I say theme park, it's more like an anime island, anime theme park.
Oh,
And there's like
okay.
a giant Godzilla that you can zip line into the mouth.
That's rad.
That's cool.
That's cool. No, I didn't see that. I remember seeing like on the map on Google Maps, there was like a Hello Kitty like permanent exhibition or
Statue.
something like that,
Yeah.
statue or something. That was supposedly pretty
Wow.
famous. Yeah,
I
Shikoku's
watched-
rad.
I need to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Awaji Island like about 2 hours by bus ride from Kyoto? Is that what it is?
I drove. It was about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, we stayed there because we wanted to go into Shikoku for like an indigo workshop, an indigo dyeing workshop the day after. So
Okay.
we wanted to cut the drive in half between
Right.
Osaka to Shikoku.
Shikoku.
Yeah. I want to take a car and just like, or maybe a bike or a moped and just like do the whole island.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like a famous route, right? The 88 Temple route in
Oh.
Shikoku.
I think as long as you have like an international driver's license, yeah, you should be good.
Yeah. I have one, the IDP. Yeah. Driving in Japan's been a trip.
It's a trip, yeah.
But
But the clicker, right? Like what is it? The left signal clicker or right signal clicker? It's on the different side. So like
yeah,
when I'm
everything's reversed. It's like
so
weird.
whenever I try to signal left or right, I turn on the windshield wipers in Japan.
yeah.
And then
yeah,
you know what's weird is when I went back to America recently to drove again, I did the opposite. I was in America. I kept turning on the windshield wipers. I was like, oh shoot, I'm in Japan mode still.
Yeah.
So it's a trip. But other than that, Japan's super. I think it's super safe to drive.
Super
so far.
safe. Super safe. For me, it was a bit of a trial by fire or by ice, depending how you see it, because I was in Sapporo and I got it was at night. It was like a late night and it was snowing pretty hard, and I was driving into the city where the roads are pretty like easy to drive through, but the ice was like building up quite a bit, so it became more and more narrow in some sections. And so driving through the ice in Japan as my first night here was. After that, I was pretty comfortable driving like anywhere else around Honshu.
So you started with the hard level. You started with extra hard level.
Yeah.
Then you went to easy level.
Yeah. I'm really glad I had a car though. Like that opened up so many new possibilities and around Hokkaido.
Are you gonna go to Kyushu? You hit all the three major islands. Except
That's my next sort of big thing. Like
I'm going to Kyushu 2 months from now. Yeah.
Really?
Nagasaki, yeah.
Oh.
And you know what's crazy is I'll be going during the time. This is kind of sad, but during the time the bomb was dropped in August.
Oh.
Yeah, we planned the trip first to have it match with like Mountain Day, but then we just realized, oh, the bomb was dropped in August. The second atomic bomb that's ever been dropped. So it's that's gonna be kind of solemn. I've been to Hiroshima in the museum there, but I want to see the Nagasaki one too.
Yeah, me too. I want to see it. When are you going? 2 months from now?
I'm going in August. Yeah.
In August?
Early August. Yeah. So first, second week of August. So it's gonna be hot. Yeah, Kyushu.
It's gonna be warm.
But if you ever go to Kyushu, Dan, have you been to Kyushu? Like, if you go to Kyushu, like Kumamoto is awesome. Also Mountain is awesome. I've been there before. But yeah, Dan, what's your travel experience like? You went in the 90s, then the
I went in the
2000s?
90s.
That's
Wow.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah, I went in the 90s to Kyushu, to Sasebo. Sasebo is like this little small town, and it was my friend's family that lived out there. But they brought us to House Tempos, the Holland or the Holland theme park. Do
Yeah,
you know
house
about this?
temples. Yeah,
Yeah, House
it's like
Tempos.
a European like a park,
Dutch.
I guess. Dutch. Yeah.
Specifically Dutch. And they say a theme park. I mean, it feels like you're in Holland, but the thing is, like, I don't think there were that many rides.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You could actually, back when it opened, you could buy a condo there. And they said that Michael Jackson purchased a condo there.
Oh wow.
So
In Kyushu?
in House Tempos, in that
Whoa.
theme park.
What the
So
hell?
That's near Nagasaki, I think, right? Or,
yeah, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you
That's
went there.
I went there.
Wow, in the 90s. Amazing.
Yeah, it was
damn.
weird. And then, but we went in Sasebo, you can go what you call it, spearfishing without a license.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's
I
so
wonder if you
sick.
can still do that. Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Spearfishing?
Yeah, that's cool.
But it wasn't like a gun. It was like a rubber band that you like hold with your thumb and you like hold at the
Whoa.
top and you let go and it just goes straight because it's all like a giant rubber band.
While you're free diving?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Are you a diver? You like diving?
No, I mean they just said like, hey, why don't you try
Wanna
this
try it,
because you're in
give it a go.
Sasebo. Yeah. Since you're in Sasebo, you can go try this.
That's awesome. I'll try that.
Dan, did you do any surfing? I know you're a big surfer. Did you do any surfing in
Yeah.
Japan
That's a
at
good
all?
surfing spot.
No, I didn't go there. You know, the best surfing spot is Okinawa,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
I can
never
see
went.
that. Mm.
Okinawa and Chiba, and I never went.
Chiba.
Yeah, Chiba.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
far east of Tokyo.
Yeah.
On
That's
the
a good
Pacific side.
surfing area?
It's a good surfing area.
That's-
There's a place in the Izu Peninsula also has a surfing area too.
Okay.
You're
Yeah,
And
I
then-
was staying with a couple of hosts when I first got to Sapporo, or in Niseko actually, and they're
Uh-huh.
Japanese, and they were telling me that they're surfers, and during summer to go down to Kyushu. I forget which area, but that's where they would go to surf. It looked beautiful. The pictures they were showing me, there were like waterfalls and stuff like that, depending on
Oh, wow.
which. Yeah, it was epic. I want to go.
You ever want to take that up, surfing at all, or not really?
Yeah, it's another. I gotta be careful with like how many obsessions I get into. I try to focus on like maybe 2 or 3 things and try to get good at them before I expand. But between diving and skiing and art, I'm like I got my hands full.
Yeah.
It's
But that's great.
Yeah, man, it's been really. It's just been so important to have like a physical practice to balance out the mental side of just straining
Right.
myself to make pictures. You know, really important to just get outside. Yeah, happy to talk a little bit more about that. The whole reality versus expectations of
Yeah.
traveling.
So the reality, I guess, the reality of traveling is, definitely it beats the picture of like just looking at pictures and just looking at social media.
Totally.
Like doing the actual traveling is great. You had asked about my own personal experiences.
Yeah.
So I did some traveling in college, like to Taiwan and to like Hong Kong actually.
Mhm.
But then long-term travel. Here, maybe I'll wait until this ambulance leaves. So for our guests who are just listening in, we're outside the second floor of a coffee shop. So and we're overlooking like a not freeway, but like a busy street. Yeah.
That's a main road.
You can see a Lawson's from here, and a Family Mart.
It's a nice neighborhood. I like it.
No, it's a good neighborhood.
Sure.
So, I did some long-term traveling. If you consider Taiwan travel, because I grew up in the States, but I went to kind of reconnect with my roots after college. Traveled in Taiwan. Lived in Taiwan for 2 years. Studied Mandarin, and then also I met my girlfriend at the time there, and we eventually. We were doing long distance for a little bit after Taiwan, and then she went to do a working holiday in Australia, and I joined her. So I did a working holiday visa.
Which part of Australia?
We traveled. We started in Darwin, which is in the Northern Territory, and then we made our way down the middle to Adelaide in South Australia. And then after South Australia, we did like Melbourne a little bit, and then this town called Jindabyne. There's a snow resort there during America summer.
Right.
And but so in the June, July, August months, they would have skiing. And I worked at like a snow resort in Jindabyne
Yeah.
for a
It's
little
dope.
bit, doing housekeeping. And so my solo, so that wasn't solo travel, that was with someone. But and then after that, I did some mini trips. But the trips that you're doing like months on end by yourself, yeah, I guess the closest analogous thing I can think of is maybe Taiwan-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was in Australia, I was with someone. I was traveling with someone, and then there's the complications with that too. It's kind of like that was my first time living with a romantic partner, and that had its own kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, it takes a very particular kind of partner to be able to travel well together for an extended period of time, especially.
Yeah. So
you were talking about like dealing with like loneliness.
Oh yeah,
when you were traveling. Did you struggle with that a lot when you were traveling?
I think yes, in the sense that even now in Japan, even though I'm married, my wife is Japanese, right, and I'm with her. Even here, I don't really have the same social structures as in America. So like if in LA, I can always hang out with Dan or my friends there.
Sure.
Or the Bay Area, I have my close family there. But here, I guess I had to kind of find I had to connect with my wife and her family in a way, and there's that language barrier.
Of course.
So, and I think that's a huge thing. I know when I was living in Taiwan, the outsiderness was, as my Mandarin got better and better, I was feeling more and more connected with the people, if that makes sense. Because I could have more conversations and I could connect with more people as my Mandarin improved in Taiwan. And I think that's the same here in Japan. I think, like, as you probably saw, like I could do like the aisatsu, like the greetings in Japanese, and that already helps kind of break down some barriers.
Yeah, I mean, your Japanese seems freaking great. You were navigating
mama.
everything.
In Japanese, we say mama. It's like whatever. It's okay.
Yeah, it's super impressive to me.
But even then, there's still like, if you want to talk about relationships or you want to talk about like, your hobbies and stuff, that's when I start getting like
the nuances.
The nuances get tough.
Sure. It's I mean, I think it's a common tendency. I think what I found is that like when you're solo traveling, it's a lot easier to meet other solo travelers. And it's interesting. A lot of the struggles like loneliness and anxiety is a pretty common theme, but you start wondering like what people's motivations are to want to solo travel to begin with, if that's something that I think an illusion that a lot of people have is that like they have this thing that they're dealing with back home, and once they travel, somehow the problem is going to go away. Your own tendencies to like not make friends, not saying you, like that's speaking for myself, to like not going out there and like putting yourself out there, being outgoing. I don't think those problems like ever go away. I always knew that, and it was like a constant reminder that my tendencies back home like kind of stay with me wherever I go, and I really have to be careful in terms of being grounded in like what I want to get out of like my traveling here. And a big one for me is people struggle with loneliness. I have the opposite problem. I have the opposite problem of like being addicted to like being on my own for too long.
Wow, interesting.
Like during the pandemic, well, I stayed with my ex at the time, and that was obviously different. But even after that, when we split, I was going around on my own around Montana and Utah, and like going back to California. I was just mentally, I felt like that's what I needed to just thrive for probably too long on my own, to be honest. I think it's really, that's an addiction almost, is you just want to have I think it's rooted in probably some degree of like wanting control or like be feeling safe like in the environment that you're in, at least for myself. And I'm really comfortable to just do things on my own for, I think, way too long. And that's part of the intent to sort of still retain that part of myself, but still being like open to meeting people along like my journey. And that's one of the big intents this year, which is why I'm so happy that you reached out to me and having met the people that I have here in Tokyo and Osaka. It's been just a blessing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a struggle that I have, is that like I think I get too comfortable like being on my own when I'm traveling, and I'm trying to subvert that a little bit. And yes, feeling like an outsider as a foreigner, I think that's a very real thing. I remember being in Sapporo, and I was like, before I left the hotel, I was like, okay, like I gotta say bye to like these people like on the hotel attendants, and here's how you say it in Japanese, how you say thank you. I've never really had to say thank you like properly when I first got here. I remember like sitting in my hotel room and like looking at all these different words and being like, okay, this is what they do, this is what they do. Like there's this, maybe it's I don't know if it's like a general like Asian thing. At least for myself, it's always been like I want to make sure I'm like a good guest, like in someone else's like space, and I never want to be like bothersome to other people, which is an interesting dynamic because I feel like Japan is often the same way with other people, and so it's like you kind of like compounds this effect when you're here. But yes, I dealt with that a lot, and I think I still feel that often, where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go out to this thing, and like, okay, these are the sort of like things I need to pay attention to, and not make an ass of myself, and be a good guest. And I think sometimes there could be overcorrection the other way, where you kind of forget kind of who you are, overthink it, and not wanting to even like leave your space. Sometimes, at least for myself, it's like, I'm good here, you know, like there's some resistance there, but you kind of sink into it, and I think it makes sense as you get momentum in doing whatever you set out to do.
So it gets easier for you, anxiety, I guess.
It's I think anxiety, I mean, you both know this very well in your own practices. It's just like the more you think about it, the worse it gets. You just have to balance it out with some practice and engagement, and as soon as you start doing it, there's momentum and good decision making, I think, and course correction that helps.
Dan, as someone, you're the best Japanese speaker here. So like, did you feel like I guess we're talking about feelings of belonging, maybe, or feelings of being in a space, comfortable in that foreign space. Like, I guess, Dan, I'm kind of curious, since you can speak the language, conversationally. Maybe you feel like more connected to like Japanese people or Japan when you travel here, or not so much?
Making friends in Japan is like super tough in general, I think.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have made their friends a long time ago, and they're not as open to meeting new friends as an adult. But I did work in Japan for a summer, illegally. When I was in college.
Allegedly.
What were you doing?
Well, I mean,
allegedly.
I was at a R&D center for like a pneumatics company. So pneumatics meaning like valves and stuff like. If you look at Disney, if you go to Disneyland, you hear or look at the animatronics, and you hear like those are valves, and there are two companies in the world that make them, like for a majority of the world. One is in America, it's in Michigan, and the other one's in Japan. So I went to the one in Japan.
You made valves for a summer in Japan illegally?
Well, I didn't even make it. I wasn't even doing that. I was like, it was the R&D center, so you just kind of do whatever they tell you to do. I was just, making things or checking things if it's broken or whatever. But I think because you work there and everyone's there, and you just have to interact with them. They have to interact with you at some point. And then some of them are more curious than others. So I did make some friends in that regard. I was very bad about keeping in contact with them. I feel bad about that, and I still think about it to this day. But I remember one of the guys brought me and my friend from college. The both of us went there. He brought us one night, and Saturday night we drove all around Tokyo to go find all the haunted locations and take pictures. We were looking
haunted
for
locations.
Ghosts. Yeah, we were looking for ghosts. Like we went to an abandoned hospital, to a morgue section.
Cool! I want to do that.
Yeah, so we did that.
That's awesome.
And I should have kept in better contact with them, but I was I was like a teenager, so I
Do you
was
have
stupid.
pictures from those places that you
I
were
might
ghost
have a
hunting?
couple. I might have a couple. I have to go dig
Oh
them up.
man, that's so
But
cool. That's so
we didn't
scary and cool.
we didn't find anything like for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But there was like one where it looks like it was like a thumb, right? Like it was like you took a picture at night and there's like a bright spot. It looked like someone's finger, like a thumb, it's just really bright.
Whoa.
But the guy goes, no, that's probably a ghost spot. And they would tell us all these ghost stories, which were really cool. But
Wow.
we ended the night going to a convenience store and getting fireworks and shooting them off at the park.
Oh, wow.
You should do
You're
that
like,
in the summer.
fuck these ghosts. Yeah.
You should do that. It's fun.
I remember in being in Ishigaki, they were selling these like giant packs of
Yeah.
like fireworks. I wasn't sure about obviously it's legal if they're selling in the store, but I was like shocked at how freaking big the
Huge,
package was.
yeah.
Yeah.
7-Eleven. You can go to 7-Eleven or Lawson's and they have them. And we
What are
just
the
bought 'em.
laws
It's
like here? You can shoot them anywhere? Seems like
I think as long as it's not like noise pollution, like it's an area where it's not too heavily populated, I think it should be okay. Yeah, I mean, they're selling
so.
them, yeah.
They don't have like designated areas where you're at because like Kyushu is so. You were in Kyushu, right, when you were doing this?
That was in Tokyo.
Oh, that was in Tokyo. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Kyushu is so like it's so lush and.
Because
Yeah,
you don't want to start a fire, right? Yeah.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
We did do
Or
we did do
receptive
fireworks in
to
Kyushu
fires.
though.
Yeah.
They were like,
Wow.
hey, you want to go do that? And I was like, yeah, cool. But that ghost thing, that was in Tokyo because I was working in scuba, which is outside of Tokyo, about an hour outside of Tokyo.
This was in the 90s-ish?
This was like 92, 93,
Wow.
somewhere around
Damn,
there.
dude.
Dude,
And then,
yeah. I've
they
seen
were
movies from
drifting.
that time, but
They were
so, yeah.
drifting back then.
Wow.
Think about when drifting culture came to America, right? We only
Yeah,
thought about like in
Initial D.
2000s. Yeah,
Oh, that's
in
the
the
one, yeah, Initial
2000s.
D, yeah.
But they were drifting in 92, 93 all around the mountains already.
That's sick.
They took us out there and they showed us. They set up like they have parking lots in the mountains and they would set up cones and then they got like really cheap tires and they just swap them out and they were like drifting. And one of the guys had a loaner car from Subaru and they were just like revving the crap out of it. They burned the clutch a little bit and they had to
Oh,
cool it
shit.
down. I was like, aren't they worried about like dealer blah blah blah? And they're like, no, it's okay. You should go try it or go
That's
ride in it.
badass.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I wonder if that culture is still around. You know,
It's
see-
gotta be. It's
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
There's
be.
probably some
yeah.
subcultures
Car
like
culture
that.
is huge.
Yeah. But I think that kind of because that era is called the Showa era, right? The era that
Yeah.
you were, yeah. So, and I talked to my wife about this, and she'll sometimes look at something or look at a place and say, "Oh, that's so Showa," right? And Showa mean kind of like old, kind of like
Showa.
because in
Vintage.
Japan, yeah, they have different eras based on the emperor
Oh.
or the royal family. So Showa is, it was like we were born in the Showa area, it was like the longest era, one of the longest recent
Yeah.
modern eras. And then after that there was Heisei, and then now it's Reiwa, and it's based on like the abdication of the throne, I guess. It's not really a throne; it's like a symbolic throne. I guess.
What range is Showa sort of?
I want to say,
I think it was like post World War II,
yeah,
up
Through the
until like
90s?
94.
late-
I want to say, yeah.
mid to late 90s. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a long period.
I think like 92 was towards the end of the Showa era. Yeah, but I bring that up to say like, yeah, things are changing, right? Things change, and I think there's still a little bit of that Showa style here in Japan. You can see it in kind of like for instance, like there's these diners or where you could smoke inside the diners. They still
Yeah.
have them, but like
Some of the onsens are like that.
yeah,
A lot of
and
them, yeah.
but now more and more like because of like they know that smoking kills and like they want to be more family friendly. A lot of these places have died out and become like restaurants or something like that. But it's very interesting to hear like your stories, Dan, about that kind of era. I'm sure there's some of that subculture now. I
Yeah.
know-
Is that where snacks are from? Like the bars?
Oh, you know about snacks.
I only know about it
Ah.
because one of my favorite photographers, Greg Girard, I think he's French. He did this incredible. He lived all around Asia throughout the 80s and 90s.
Sorry, Dan, our Wi-Fi cut out at the hour mark. Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
No worries.
so
The
you were
Showa period, Yeah, I was still recording.
Okay,
But
great,
I
great.
just looked it up while I was by myself.
Yeah.
Showa was like 1926 to 1989.
Oh,
Wow.
89. Okay, so you're
Most of
post
20th
Showa.
century.
Actually. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why
So
29? Oh, I guess the
1926 to
So
1989.
during World War II is Showa era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
fascinating. Okay, so that's most of 20th century. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
anything older than 30 something years.
So yeah,
Showa.
Showa era.
Cool.
I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit also about your story about like, you fell in love with like. So for me to interact with Japanese people, going back to like connecting with people, I go through my hobbies.
Yep, yep,
I
yep.
practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And,
So cool.
And that's been a good place for me to interact with locals.
Yeah.
And also, but I also understand at the same time it's a niche audience. It's a bunch of my particular club. There's no women. But it's like kind of a boys' club, you know. It's like I mean, I think it's not closed off to women. It's just like seems like it's a group of dudes, a lot of salary men, but they're interested in jiu-jitsu and figure out a way to like express
Right.
themselves physically outside of the 9 to 5 grind or 9 to 6, 9 to 9 grind sometimes.
Sure.
I'm kind of curious to hear of your sport, your kind of love of sports and how that kind of set you off. And you said the North Star for you has been art, which we talked about in our last podcast. The art that you
Yeah,
create,
yeah,
the kind of
totally.
the dreamscapes or landscapes that you kind of you've created. But the other one recently has been skiing, right?
Yeah, I don't think I even skied when the last time we spoke. Really,
Yeah, it
I
was
think I probably
3 years
tried it a
ago,
couple
yeah.
of times, and but after Washington, I went to Montana and I was going through a breakup and stuff like that. And I was staying in Bozeman, and it's like, hey, I'm just gonna give skiing a more serious go, just to have something, just to get me out of the house. And I could just completely just fall in love with it. And my travels have always been like guided by like interest. And for a long time, it's like photography, landscape photography, and evolve into like bringing my computer with me and staying in like the redwoods or whatever and working on my art. And skiing has been this third thing where I'm like going to new places and checking out their ski culture. So yeah, that was a big motivation to come to Japan with my skis, and I've definitely met some amazing people
Oh, that's amazing.
through that way. Yeah, I took some ski lessons from a Japanese instructor.
Oh wow, how'd
And
that
it was amazing. Yeah, I took 3 lessons with him, and I made it a point of finding a Japanese instructor for that reason. I wanted to hear about the country through the lens of a Japanese person
They
who's a
spoke
skier.
English, or they spoke in English, or
English,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Which I was really grateful for. Taught me some Japanese, but I need to practice. But yeah, no, it was incredible. He was telling me about the history of Niseko and sort of his own history of being trained across the world, and sort of a difference in philosophy in terms of Japanese skiing. I mean, this is an extremely broad stroke. There's all types of skiers everywhere, but there are just some foundational philosophical differences between like skiing in Japan versus skiing like anywhere else,
Oh, interesting.
or the Western world. A lot of it is out of like a practical reason because the snow is a different quality in Japan than
Okay.
anywhere. It's a lot lighter,
Okay.
a lot fluffier.
Oh.
Yeah, it's well known for that. Like the Japan powder is world renowned for that reason.
Oh.
But a lot of supposedly, I'm not deep enough into this discipline to really parse, but what he told me is that he's seen a lot of Western skiers bringing their technique into the powder in Japan, and a lot of them struggle at first because it's the stance and sort of like your upper lower body separation is very nuanced and different.
Okay.
And also another thing, not to get too deep into this on
No, I'm curious. Yeah.
So like in skiing, there's like on-piste skiing, off-piste, like backcountry and side country and so forth.
Okay.
And the American fixation on skiing oftentimes is like how big jumps you can do, like how many tricks you can do, going to the backcountry and doing wild tricks and so forth. But in Japan, there is a lot of respect for like on-piste, like carving. Just like the most sort of foundational technique of skiing is this skiing or not skiing, is doing like a proper turn and proper carving. Instead, there'll be
Proper
entire
carving.
competitions where people are just literally lining up to do like a perfect carve, like
Like
down a hill.
Okay, like that
Yeah,
S-shaped thing. Okay,
exactly. And
wow.
they're like, there's judges judging on their form, on their discipline, on like sort of their edge angles. It could be. I'm not really sure on what the judging criteria is, but you just don't ever see that in America, where they're judging like one specific discipline within skiing in such a like a scrutinized way,
Uh,
where they're going so deep into like one thing, whereas in America the judgment is usually like how big of a jump you can do and how many flips you can do and so forth. It's all cool, and they do that amazingly well here, probably as good as anywhere else. But it was just super interesting to see that. It's such a, I don't know, it's like right to say, but it felt so Japanese. Like to just like
It is.
fixate on one thing and just do it over and over and over again until it's perfect. And I've never seen that before. Like I'll go to like these little family resorts around Hokkaido where it's super local, and it'll just be like armies of people like lining up on like very specific slopes to watch each other like do carving.
just carving.
Just carving, like just like making the right carve in the right form.
I'm assuming there's something very relaxing about that, though, like seeing the perfect carve being shaped in the snow. Like as a
Yeah.
spectator, like I would assume that sounds like, like, oh, that's kind of like ASMR, like, oh,
Yeah. You can even see when it's a good carve. You can see sort of the railroad tracks being very clean. There's very little spray and stuff. But it goes well beyond that. It's the body form. It's your sense of balance. It's they have Western skiers who compete in these competitions, and from what I've heard and seen, it's like they can't even figure out what the criteria even is
wow.
because it's so, I don't know. Maybe it's just embedded in the language,
culture, yeah.
in the culture, and no one can figure it out. They just go for it, and there's short turns, long turns, rhythm changes, and there's all sorts of different criteria for judgment. But it's for judging, but it's just super fascinating, you know.
I find that very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Super cool. I was so happy to go beyond sort of the touristy resorts and go to places where nobody spoke English. And
Yeah.
It was all families and local skiers and all sorts of interesting people. So that's been really important for me, and that's always been the case for me, where I usually have a passion, have a North Star, and then I use that as the lens to navigate new places. Always. Like I didn't even like traveling growing up. I wanted to take pictures of specific places, so I started traveling because that was out of necessity to take those pictures. And then I fell in love with traveling adjacent to my pursuit of something else, So it's I think that's been a really important thing for my mental health, traveling on your own.
For the
several
sport, yeah, I think you had mentioned before, like kind of like art kind of gets that part of your brain working, of like the aesthetics and
Yeah.
perspective, but then the actual using your body to
Yeah.
express yourself.
Yeah.
I
It's
guess
incredible.
that's where the skiing comes in.
Yeah.
And that helps express your this body that you use in the world. You navigate the world with this body.
Yeah.
And how do you express it and use it to its potential?
Yeah.
I find for myself, yeah, I get like super like depressed if I don't work out for like a while. And it's probably not even that long, maybe like 2 weeks. If I don't do something like physical, like fairly physically,
Yeah.
like difficult in
Yes.
like 2 weeks time, I realize like, man, I'm really like,
Out of rhythm.
I'm out of rhythm.
Yeah.
Something's off.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Totally.
Dan. Well, what do you feel like? Do you have a physical practice that you need for you to stay like balanced? I guess.
I think for me, I'm probably different from you guys. I can just be a lump on the log. But the thing is, once I start doing, I don't consciously, I'm aware of like missing doing physical things. But when I do it, and after I do it, the feeling is different, right? If I
Yeah.
go surfing and I go, oh, you know what? It doesn't really matter, work-wise, whatever, because I was like, oh, I could drown here. If a gigantic wave just wipes you out and like, oh, you know what? That email, that one word that I missed, it's okay. What doesn't matter? Because it's like that feeling of like, oh, just like the little bit, just feeling like part of nature, and also knowing that emails or whatever you're doing, it's a very
Bullshit.
small part of life.
Yeah,
Right.
that's beautiful, man. That's a common philosophy I've heard from a lot of disciplines, but surfing specifically, people
Yeah.
just have it to turn things out. Yeah, no, totally. I feel the same way with skiing. It's like I could get really hurt if I'm not present with what I'm doing.
Right.
I think that's the commonality that like I get from like art making is the sense of like alignment with what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling with what I'm doing.
Okay.
Where you're in a flow
Integration.
state of making something, you're just, the tools that you're using almost disappear. You're just in the moment of whatever you're creating late into the night, like last night. That's why I'm a little bit sleepy. but like skiing is the same feeling, but in a more emphasis on physical, obviously,
Right.
the physicality of it, where you're just in perfect alignment with the tools that you have, and you also develop a relationship, probably in the same way that you do with surfing or being on a mat with other practitioners, where you start developing a relationship with the environment that you're in a way that was not possible before. For me, it was like photographing mountains from far away for a long time, and now I'm like gliding off of it on like a couple pairs of like planks. It's just mind blowing. I just love that feeling of feeling aligned with the present. Really, that's what it feels like. It's just
Right.
being aligned with the presence. Yeah, it's like art making. It takes maybe like 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes longer, to get into that state. For skiing, maybe the same way with surfing too. You have to fucking pay attention like immediately, or you're gonna eat shit. So it's like the way I was describing to my friend who I share a lot of these like mental health practices with. It's like it feels like a shortcut to the present. That's what it feels
Shortcut
like.
to the presence. I like that.
Yeah. You have to pay attention. As soon as you get up the lift, you can like cruise and mess around or whatever, but like you're not gonna have as much. For me, it's not as much fun unless you're paying attention.
Man, getting off that lift, when I first started skiing, like getting off that lift was so anxiety
Yeah.
inducing, because it's like
Yeah.
there's people coming after, there's a chair
Yeah.
pushing me, and I gotta
Totally.
make sure I go down this just small little hill.
Yeah.
Oh man, this
Totally.
was like, I'm not a huge skier, but I do remember that anxiety. But
Oh,
now-
totally.
yeah,
Totally
yeah.
had that. Totally had that. And there's like, for me, I didn't want to look like a jackass. I didn't want to like be bothersome to other people, and like I didn't want to do anything wrong. There's always that part of me that's like paying attention. But once you get into the momentum of it, it's like it just becomes completely addicting. Like there are certain parts of the mountain you're like scared of, and throughout the season you start developing a relationship where that sense of fear starts turning into a sense of like something more positive, like a feeling of like progression, but also just like fun and growth. Like it's just
Right.
subverting that fear, and you get reminded of that each time you go down to like these little runs or parts of the mountain that you were initially scared of.
Yeah, and I want to kind of get your guys' thoughts on this, but kind of what you're talking about makes me think about a lot of times, like on, not just our podcast, but other podcasts and other discussions in the general public. We talk about politics, divisions. We talk about how, is that person on the left or the right? Is this, is that insulting, not insulting, this piece of media, whatever. But it's very interesting because like once you go into like sports and a certain craft, it's about like all that stuff is like, sure, that stuff is important in its own space, right? Politics, representation, media, racism, stuff like that's all important. That's something I spend a lot of time thinking about. But when you're on the mat and like, if you're not present and you don't tap early, your arm might get broken, Or I'm assuming like if you're skiing and you don't watch out for like, oh shoot, I'm getting too close to that tree or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, I guess one thing that's been described before, I think I was heard on like Lex Friedman or Andrew Huberman podcast, like wordlessness. Wordlessness, like a practice where words or language is not the primary goal or source of information. The source of information is actually touch, friction, your body telling you something. And I think that's so important because most of the time, especially with our sedentary lifestyle now, the modern man, just sitting in front of a computer hours on end, checking emails, responding to text messages, all that's important in its own space. But I think there needs to be a space for wordlessness, or places where language is not the primary function. It's the actual interaction between your body, mind, and the environment, whatever that environment you put yourself in. Whether it's surfing,
amazing.
Dan, for you, or martial arts for both of us, or skiing for you, or also scuba diving. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It feels like, I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're saying, but it almost feels like it's always been a case for me where words are always have just been like signifiers. Words are never the thing that I'm trying to get to with whatever I'm expressing. I think it has to do with the fact that English is a second language for me. It's always felt like language is always like a tool to get to something else. And if I'm already doing that thing I'm trying to get to, then there's no need for words. I'm already in the present. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but that's what it reminds me of. It's just that words are just a means to an end.
Right, I guess they're metaphors for the actual thing, or they're representations of the actual thing.
It's the hand pointing to something else.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a finger pointing to the moon.
Right.
I gotta throw some Enter the Dragon in there. We saw Enter the Dragon DVD earlier today.
Yeah, that's one of the comic books like main influences. It was like next to like Clockwork Orange and like The Exorcist, and there was like Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon.
Right, Junji Ito's he was like he put like some items that he's influenced by. So Dan, do you have any thoughts on that? Does that kind of make sense what I'm talking about, or what Paul's talking about?
Yeah, two things. The art of expressing the body is something that Bruce Lee actually said. There's actually a book that he has, The Art of Expressing the Human Body, right? So that's one thing. But the other thing is like what you're talking about now, that's what I got from watching Fight Club. If you watch Fight Club, the meeting was like, what is, to be a man or the value of a person, right? Other than back in the prehistoric days, it's all about who can actually beat whoever else up. And that was like the feeling of you're just focused and in the present moment. It's not about the consumerism. At the very beginning, he talks about the IKEA table, this and that, but that's what Edward Norton's character gets caught up in. And then when he starts doing the Fight Club, it doesn't really even matter. All these things, it's just a fleeting part of life.
Yeah.
But what can we really do and feel and touch? What's the worth of a man? It's not like the possessions that they have, but what they can actually physically do.
Right, it's getting to that kind of like primal stage. Once in a while we gotta touch into those primal instincts, right? Survival, fighting, I guess sex maybe. But I guess there's a part where it's like that. I guess when we were talking about overthinking a little bit earlier. It's a time where we need to shut off our brains a little bit in that aspect, and then turn on the other parts of our brain. Like some people were saying, we've gotten our forebrain or something has gotten smarter over the years and stuff like that. But I think there was another argument saying how it's just that the allocation of resources of our brain have been, instead of like it's the potential for an Einstein has always been there, right? We've been basically the same kind of creature for 100,000 years or so. But it's just that we've shifted our focus to like, podcasting or to making art or stuff like that. But before it was like we would have to memorize like the trails, how to get game, where are the best spots for berries, So and and it's kind of
makes sense.
And I think that as the modern man or the modern person, returning to those natural elements, whether it's being in the water or in the snow for yourself, Paul, or if it's being like for me personally lately it's been like being on the mat grappling with someone. I find like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I need this once in a while. I can't do it like all day, every day. Some people do that professionally, right?
That's the tricky part, because I have no interest in being like, what do you call it?
Professional skier.
No, I mean, not even that. I'm just talking about like being like a primitivist, where I'm just going up and living in the woods and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that is based around that. It's like, how do you marry all the advances of technology? I love having a smartphone. I love having a digital like camera that's like the size of my pocket, taking beautiful pictures. How do you do that while still having like a more groundedness in terms of these like primitive needs and impulses? I think it's, I'm not sure where there's an answer for it. We haven't been like in the stage that we're at for that long as humans.
It's crazy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's too, we move too fast, and now we gotta dial it back and figure out what it is that we're gonna get to. But I have no interest in being a caveman.
Right.
I want to try hunting sometime though. I would love to try hunting.
Try hunting. Okay.
Yeah, hunting and maybe spearfishing. Have you ever tried diving, Dan? I feel like you would like diving based on the things
I
I'm talking about.
would want to try diving, but
Scuba diving.
it's tough when you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
And they're getting to the age when they have like activities that I have to go ferry them to.
How old are they?
11 and 9.
Okay.
So now, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say you can get a PADI license at 9, a junior PADI license. So it'd be a family activity. That's such an amazing bonding experience. If I had a family, I'll totally take them diving. It's incredible. You're underwater together, looking at like wildlife together.
How's their temperament, Dan? Like as far as activities, what are they attracted to as far as activities they like to do?
My older son loves tap dancing.
Whoa.
Yeah, he loves it. The younger one does it because we just make him do it because he's actually pretty good at it. And we said Kobe Bryant took tap dancing lessons to strengthen his ankles and feet, so he didn't sprain his ankles. Yeah, he did it for a summer. But the younger one's really into basketball. He's always been into basketball. He loves basketball.
Nice.
We put him in a 4-hour camp, every day this week, 4 hours each day. He goes, I want to do another week. I want to do a couple more weeks if I could.
That's so
Older
cool.
son is like, I did it. I don't want to go back.
Wow. That's awesome that he found his thing, though. What's his
He
team?
found it a long time ago.
Warriors, obviously.
Warriors, Lakers, both of those. Because
Both
I'm a
of those,
Lakers fan, but my wife is like total Warriors fan.
Well,
Yeah.
Bay Area, right?
Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that Boston just won a chip. But
I know.
Yeah,
I hate
I'm over
that
it.
too.
I was rooting for the Mavs. I'm like, come on, Luka, get it together.
I know.
Blow our minds. Didn't happen though. But anyway.
Nope.
So Dan, we want to be respectful of your time. It's coming
Yeah.
on the hour. Let's do. Anything else before we start wrapping this up, or?
No?
It's good seeing you, Dan.
Yeah, it's good
That's
seeing
good
you.
seeing you.
Yeah.
Let me know when you come back to LA.
Yeah.
we can have coffee.
Let's do it. If I'm
Yeah.
in LA. Yeah, my sister's in Pasadena, so I'm gonna go
okay.
visit her at some point, I think. So.
Great.
Oh yeah,
great.
it's not too
Yeah.
far.
Yep.
So we usually end with segments about language and also about what's a practice we've been doing to like stay kind of balanced. So as far as language, like language corner, I'm trying to think. For me, in the mornings, like it's so interesting. In Japan, you see kids walk to school by themselves. I don't think you see this in the States.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to think of it's kind of like ants, like these ants in the line. And Ari, I believe that's Ari is ants.
Yeah.
And I learned that recently because I asked my wife, well, how do you say ants or lying?
Ami?
Ari.
Adi.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ari.
ARI.
ARI. Like just seeing them walk to school, and it's such an interesting thing to see every morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and then and then one thing this is more of like so like I think I've already mentioned this, but I just kind of I think of it again, like ojamashimasu, right? Ojamashimasu is like when you enter someone's home or space, you say like I'm sorry for the intrusion, even though you're the guest. You say ojamashimasu. Yeah, that's
like
ojamashimasu.
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
also
thanks for
sorry.
having me, and it's when you enter the space.
Okay.
Yeah, and I find like so these little things of like so interesting. Like
That's fascinating.
yeah, for the kids in the line, like no one's telling them to walk like in a line, and then they walk on a specific side of the sidewalk,
It's amazing,
and
dude.
then they take that like it's on the right, the specific line of the sidewalk where the concrete
Yeah.
is, and they walk that line, making sure not to block other people. And then when you enter someone's home, you say something polite, say "Ojamashimasu." So this politeness culture, or this kind of orderliness, I guess they start teaching you as a kind of kid.
Do you say that in like a public service thing? Like if you go to like the DMV, do you say like
"Ojamashimasu"?
Yeah.
"Ojamashimasu."
or is it just homes?
Just homes.
Homes.
It's just
homes.
I remember
Okay.
Yeah.
first when my wife, when we were dating at the time, she came to my apartment, and then she said "Ojamashimasu." I was like, what is that? Yeah. So
How do you say it again?
"Ojamashimasu."
Ojamash.
Jama is to be a hindrance.
Yeah,
Like,
jama.
it's-
Yeah.
It means
Yeah.
what?
Hindrance. To be a hindrance, like you're
Ah.
hindering something or like being like kind of like troublous. And
Yeah.
suru or shimasu is like the polite form of suru, to do. So I'm going to be a hindrance or kind of like that. Like I'm
Oh,
gonna,
right. I'm going to be a hindrance. Thanks for
yeah,
having me.
I'm going to be a hindrance. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
so
so
like-
much language that it's like,
like sometimes I'll be like, doing something. Like I don't know if you notice this, but like a lot of Asian people think Americans take up a lot of space.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think that.
Yeah.
Speaking
So-
as an American.
Yeah. And so like when I'm in the kitchen and I'm just like, maybe putting some plates away, my ass is sticking out. My wife is like
Twerking.
trying to get behind me. She's
Yeah.
like, jama, jama. She'll like yell at
Yeah.
me and say, "You're in the way."
Chama, chama, chama.
Yeah, jama.
Yeah. Yeah, like shaking your ass to the song. Chama,
Yeah.
chama, chama.
And I've had to turn that kind of sensory thing on more. And I noticed like in America, like no one really has
Yeah.
that like sense of
Dude,
awareness as
it's
much.
it's wild. Even like, I mean, I've only been here for a few months, and even like just noticing the Westerners like just stick out like a sore thumb. Like when they're
Yeah.
like on trains, even on like a boat when I was diving, the way that just people carry themselves, it's so stark. Yeah, it's not good. I feel like Americans can dial that back a little bit. But anyway,
Right.
that's a whole nother topic.
they can't.
They can't.
should.
They can't help it.
They can't. It's too
It's
much.
tough.
shit.
I mean,
Yeah.
I noticed it in myself, and it's already been 3 years, and I toned it down a little bit, but I still find myself like even just today when I saw Paul on the train, I'm like, oh hey Paul, there's Paul over there, and then my wife like grabbed me like because there was someone trying to get past me behind me.
So you're walking through the
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
So I'm guilty of it too.
I'm 100% guilty. I'm sure I still do it all the time.
Any phrases that you guys like have heard of? It doesn't even have to be Japanese; it could be something else.
Well, just in the spirit of slowing down and being present and talking about diving, I learned how to say turtle today in Japanese.
Oh, turtle,
Kame.
yeah.
Kame.
Kame. I didn't even say it right. Kame.
Kame.
Yeah.
Kind of like Kamehameha, right? That's like
Yes.
that's the,
Well, if you Dragon Ball, but if
Dragon
you
Ball.
remember, his teacher actually had a show
Right.
Right.
time ago, right? And
Is
he
that
like
what
take it off
he's-
and he's like ripped.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Master Roshi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kame.
Rest in peace, Kira Toriyama. Yeah. He passed
Yeah.
not too long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that to be aware and not to cause trouble with everybody else is meiwaku. I covered it before, but meiwaku is what you don't want to cause any sort of trouble to anybody else. You want
it's
to be like a
such a
burden on.
huge thing here.
Yeah, you don't want to be a burden on everyone, and that's like the cultural thing of Japan, right?
Yeah.
On top of being like perfecting like one thing, you want to be the pursuit
Carving
for
it.
perfection. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my term is omatase or omatase shimashita. Omatase means like sorry for making you wait. When
Omatase.
you're meeting with someone like omatase, like oh I'm so
Omatase.
sorry for making you wait.
Omatase. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the
That's like
second
What-
one that you said?
Omatase shimashita. Like it's like a past tense of like I made you wait.
Ah,
I'm
okay,
sorry
okay,
for
okay.
making you wait.
So like suru or shimas is like to do verb.
Right.
You can
Right.
use it for like almost if you don't know how to say the verb of something, you can just add shimas at the end and maybe you'll get it right. Yeah. Something shimas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like benkyo shimas to
Gotcha.
study. Or
Okay. Yeah.
So the omata se shimas, right, Dan? Or-
Oh yeah, omatase shimashita because it's like a past tense. Because
Past tense.
it's already happened. I'm sorry to have made you wait.
Yeah.
So when you met up with James, and then if he was waiting for you at the station, you go omatase shimashita.
Shimasta. Omata shimasta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Omata shimasta.
Yeah.
omatase shimashita.
Omatase shimashita. I think what's so interesting, and I don't know. Sorry, I'm going a little bit over time, but I'm thinking about how like you ever meet Japanese people in America, Dan, or I don't know if you met like they're kind of like they're a little bit over it as far as like the Japanese like politeness stuff. They're like, I need to get out of this. I
Yeah.
want to go explore the world.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's so interesting because the Japanese people I meet in America is a very different breed than the Japanese people, right?
Well, they're all. This is my uneducated guess, but I feel like a lot of them like just end up in like Osaka or something.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones who like ended up talking to me like a lot, like curious. I made a lot of like friends when I was in Osaka,
Oh,
like in a
okay.
very short
They're
period of time.
telling you about their America experience or something.
Yeah, they're
like
asking
that.
me about like, oh, what is it like over there? And like they've had, they want to move to LA and New York. That's like their dream and stuff like that. And they're asking me about growing up there and telling me about. Anyway, yeah,
Right.
completely different
Well,
vibe. Yeah.
Kansai people tend to be where the comedians come from, and so they
Right.
tend to be more relaxed than like the Tokyo. They look down upon the Tokyo people.
I've heard
because-
that,
Yeah.
and vice versa, right? There's a
Yeah,
little
vice
bit of regional
versa,
beef.
too.
Vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
LA,
That's cool.
LA, San Francisco kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely like just even the Osaka person I talked to recently. He was like, "Man, Tokyo people are kind of cold. He wants to go back to Osaka."
Yeah.
And,
That's so interesting. It's
Yeah.
not even that far from here. It's
no,
like-
yeah, it's no
like-
each yeah, it's so interesting. Like just each prefecture, each city has its own vibe. In
Yeah,
Japan.
totally.
Everyone that thinks of Japan thinks of Tokyo, but there's
Right.
it's so like
It's
places-
so
you've been to more
different.
of Japan than I have, and that's
So
it's
different.
It's so different.
Yeah, Okinawa was like a vibe. It was a really nice vibe.
Yeah.
People were so helpful.
So Japan tourism, please sponsor us. You know, we
I don't think they need.
Send
I
me
don't
back
think
to
they
Hokkaido.
need any of that because there's so many people in Japan right
too
now.
many for us included.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, they're talking about like raising prices for like foreigners, right? A foreigner
heard that.
menu and like a local menu, kind of like
it's
Hawaii.
wild. It's wild.
Oh, that's
do they do that
wild.
in Hawaii?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
there's a
That seems
local
like-
price for things.
Oh my god.
yeah, and, yeah.
I heard when you get like the English menu, it's like a different price sometimes. You gotta check, you gotta cross-reference, make sure you're getting the right price.
Go with a Japanese person, and then maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just need to work on
Yeah.
my Japanese. I think it's just that's
Right.
the bottom line. I need to.
Anyways, thank
Yeah.
you. Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much, Paul. It's
Yeah.
great to see you in person.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Dan.
Give me a call. Let me know when you get back.
Yeah, the time period for when I'm coming back keeps getting extended because
Yeah.
I'm like it's hard
Yeah.
for me to imagine going
You-
back to America. But eventually, I think it's gonna happen. So I'll hit you up if I'm in LA.
You do you. Oh yeah, and last thing, things that you are staying to keep present. For me, yeah, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I guess things that help you stay balanced are skiing now.
Art and skiing and diving. I got too many.
Art, skiing, diving. Dan, for yourself, what's keeping you balanced these days?
Surfing and well, I don't as little as I surfing, and then practicing kung fu.
Kung Fu, baby.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We can talk offline.
We're gonna
more
talk about
Kung
that
Fu.
next
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about martial arts. I want to do like a martial arts episode.
Oh yeah, let's
Oh,
do
yeah.
this. Yeah, let's do a soul.
I want to talk about the
We
current
haven't
state
done
of
that
the
in a while.
UFC and all the fight orgs. I have a lot of opinions.
Awesome.
We're gonna go deep. Yeah,
What's that?
we're
Yeah.
gonna go deep next time. Yeah,
Let's go
martial
deep
arts.
on it.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, listen,
Okay.
thank you so much for joining us. See you later, guys.
Cheers,
Bye. Here, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
stop.